Hey, what's up YouTube? This is What's in My Gray Garage, and today an additional part to the working on the 1950 Farmall Cub. We're going to be just swapping out this carburetor. Having problems trying to start it, and I'm trying to swap a carburetor in here that's like known good so I can get this thing running. To remove the carburetor, you disconnect the fuel line, which mine here, the hard line's been cut. Somebody had cut it a long time ago and had just used rubber line. So I pieced together the rubber line with a filter, another filter, not including the one that's up in the tank, and a few clamps. Anyways, if you have just a metal line on these, be careful when you take them off not to bend them too much, because getting them to line up to get those threads to line up is kind of a real pain in the neck. So you may have to actually start this line before you actually install the carburetor if that line gets bent too much. So be careful of that, because these threads, I mean, it's soft malleable metal, so it doesn't do real well with a lot of abuse. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, you'll have two fasteners. You'll have this one fastener right here, which either be a bolt going through or it'll be a stud. And normally they're 7/16 fastener. And then you'll have the same on the other side. I think I've got one that's a nut, one that's a bolt. So it just depends on who's been in your tractor before. I'm really not sure how they came. I'm pretty sure, well, I would bet that it had a stud in there or two studs at one time. And then over time, when people are working on them, they just get messed up, and they switch them out just to make it work. So anyways, after you do that, you want to disconnect your air inlet for the carburetor from your air filter. Disconnect your loosen up the screw. You should be able to slide it right back off there. If you have to, loosen up the back screw, and you should be able to do something with that. So moving that out of the way. And then we should be able to take that carburetor off. So, also too, you're gonna have to take off your throttle linkage and your throttle linkage and your choke linkage, which is in the back side of the carburetor. So, and when you transfer over the choke switch little adapter here, this little piece here, which I'll show you a little bit closer in a second, that usually does not come with a new carburetor. You have to transfer that over from your old carburetor. So be careful with that, because that's only made out of lead. It's real soft. It's once you set it, or once you start to move it or mess around with it, it kind of kills it, and that's it. Once you beat them up and tear them up, I'll show you what I'm talking about. You're out of luck. You're gonna have to get a new one. They're not very much money, but still, you don't want to spend money unless you absolutely have to. So anyways, hang tight really for 1 second, and we'll get this carburetor off. Actually, I'll give it a shot right here, right now. Let's see here. Hopefully y'all can see that. Sometimes you have to go in there just with the open end part of the wrench to remove the fasteners. I don't like doing that too much unless you absolutely have to, because I feel that you're going to round off the edges of the bolt or the nut or whatnot. So just keep that in mind when you're taking this apart. And also when you're installing the carburetor back onto the tractor, don't over tighten the bolts, because all you're going to do is damage the metal, and the little gasket there is, I mean, it's not a real big gasket. I don't know even if they have a torque spec on these besides just, not gorilla tight, just tight. A lot of people get on there and start working on a carburetor and they think it's something it's not. And then before you know it, you've got stripped out screws and fasteners and jets that are all mangled up and beat up. So once I take out those two fasteners, I let the carburetor I'll drain some of the fuel out of it if there's got any in it. The one linkage already came off. Usually there should be a cotter pin. You'll usually have a cotter pin that goes through that rod, and when it goes through that rod, then you just take the cotter pin out. Mine had already been out because I was messing around, and I'm not sure if this carburetor is 100% good. I've taken it apart, looked at it, everything seems good on it, but I'm going to try a different one just to see if putting a different carburetor on there lets it fire, and then I'll go from there. Otherwise, there's something else wrong with this tractor, and I'm going to have to tinker with it a little bit. But this is the part I was talking about. If you all can see it, this is the for the choke lever, And when you install these, you want to make sure that when you pull the choke lever back, that the choke actually engages. And then you, obviously, when you push it forward, that it opens for when it's running at normal operation. But this inside of here, this little shaft here has got splines on it, and this, when you tighten that screw down, when you tighten this little flathead screw, it draws these two sides in and pinches against that. This metal here, which I'm almost positive is lead, pulls together and it bites into those little grooves on that stud there, and what that does is that holds it in place. So if you sit there and you don't tighten this up enough, it'll strip out, because it won't have any grip. And if you over tighten it, you'll probably break the screw, or you'll strip the screw out of the actual housing. So just be aware of that. Just be careful of that. It's told in lots of other videos, but just keep in mind that can happen. And when it does, it's a bear, because you either have to change out, you got to change out this part of the fixture, the carburetor, this lever, and it's not hard to do, but it's not the easiest thing either, and it's time intensive, and when you have something that works, you don't want to tear it up. So anyways, let me grab the other carburetor, and we'll get the other one put in. All right, we're back here. I got that little piece installed. We're going to for the choke, we're going to put this carburetor back on, and then we're going to hook the fuel line up. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hook up the governor for it. I'm not going to hook up the choke. I'm just going to run the choke manually. It's one less thing I have to mess with right here, right now. But while I'm out there, make sure I hook that up. It's easier to hook this stuff up while you're on the go, or while you're putting it on. If you put the carburetor on and then try to hook these lines up, or the actual linkages, it's going to be a little bit difficult. So be careful when you set this up. And it's pretty good. The actual carburetor kit comes with a new gasket, which I have right here, which I'm gonna actually leave that gasket on there for right now, because I just put that gasket on there. But the carburetor kit comes with a fuel filter and a gasket for the carburetor, so it really is not a bad deal. Hopefully it works. I've got spark, I've got fuel. I'm just not sure if it's just something else from sitting. I mean, the tractor could have something wrong with a valve or something like that. I find it kind of unlikely, because a lot of these tractors, I mean, they sit for years. People pull them out of fields and they go ahead and put a set of points on it, clean out the carburetor, and it'll fire up. So and this was fairly covered most of the time. I mean, it did sit out in the rain a little bit, but I didn't want it to. But I always kept the exhaust port covered, and like I said, when you tighten these down, you don't want to go crazy. Just want to get them snug, and then come up to when it stops, and probably just go about a quarter of a turn, and don't overdo it, otherwise you will strip it. You'll tear up the carburetor, or it'll, it's just not worth the effort. Like I said, just get it tight and just, run it up until it stops turning, and then that's it. Like everything, if you keep turning on it, it'll keep turning until your muscles are stronger than these fasteners, and these carburetors are probably machined out of a soft metal. I'm pretty sure it's aluminum, but I'm not 100% if it's something else. I don't know if it's 100% aluminum or some kind of mix. So, all right. So, you know what I forgot to do? Forgot to take off the gas inlet and switch this over, which is just a half-inch point. And remember, when you're putting these on, and not over tighten the fuel lines either. It's real easy to get a slow leak in one of these, and crank down and keep cranking on that fuel line, thinking that you just need a little more to tighten it up. If it's leaking, take it off, put a little bit of some sort of Teflon tape. You're not really supposed to use that on fuel lines, but on an old tractor, I don't think you're gonna You know, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but I'd rather put some Teflon tape on the threads or some kind of thread dope or something to put on there rather than strip out the threads, and then you'll have just a, you know, a basket of problems. So then get your fuel line on there, and then we're going to give it a shot and see if she'll fire up. Well, we'll see how good this carburetor goes. Hopefully it doesn't leak fuel all over the place. The other one, when I first put it on, it was leaking fuel everywhere, and I took it all apart, checked the bulb, checked everything. Everything looked good. It just, for some reason, it was just absolutely throwing fuel through it. And maybe the bowl or the float was stuck. I'm not 100% sure, but I put it back on, and after going through it and I didn't have to clean anything. It just maybe was hung up, but let's see here. I got this fuel line kind of run a little crazy when it tightened up in the tank. The port for the tank, it kind of is pointing back towards the engine. I should try to loosen it up, but that's where it stopped. So, all right. We got crank. Something's trying to go. Fuel dripping from the carburetor. I was looking too, I thought maybe the battery's just not strong enough, but it's a fairly new battery. I mean, it's only about a year old. Started to puff, so something's working. Try to put a jump pack on this thing. I'm gonna put you guys on hold for a second. All right, we're back. I got the new carburetor on, as y'all saw just a few minutes ago. We tried to start the tractor and we had no luck. It wouldn't turn over. And I'm not sure if it's cranking hard enough or cranking full enough with that battery. So I'm going to charge the battery tonight and give it a shot in the morning. So and I'll go over a few things tomorrow too. I'll take a plug or two out, make sure they didn't get fouled out, which I highly doubt they did because it didn't turn over that much. And I don't think the carburetor, there's nothing wrong with the carburetor. I just think it's not turning as well as it could. And when I pull the spark plugs out, I think I'm going to run a bore scope down in there and just take a quick peek down inside the cylinders, make sure there's nothing really, no problems or nothing like that. So otherwise, yeah, that's about it for today. Sorry it wasn't any more eventful, but we'll get it started here soon. It's getting close, so hopefully we'll get it up and running, and then we'll get this one out of the way, and then we'll turn to the other tractor right there. That one's going to be just basically putting it back together after replacing the radiator and a few other little parts. But once we get it all back together, we'll or get this one running, we'll start working on the 62. So anyways, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please like, share, subscribe, and I will see you next time.